What if everything you've been told about building wealth is backward? What if money isn't built through intelligence, talent, luck, or even hard work, but through something so boring, so repetitive, so unglamorous that most people refuse to believe it matters? Here's the mystery. Two people earn the same salary. They live in the same city. They face the same economy, the same inflation, the same opportunities. Fast forward 20 years. One struggles with debt, anxiety, and constant financial pressure. The other quietly owns assets, choices, and time. No lottery win. No viral startup. No secret connections. Just different daily habits. But which habits? And why do they work so slowly that most people give up before results appear? Tonight, we're not talking about get rich quick. We're not talking about side hustles, crypto bets, or overnight success. We uncovering the invisible system that has quietly built wealth for centuries, one daily decision at a time. And the most uncomfortable truth? The habits that build wealth feel pointless at first, until it's too late to start them. Setting the stage, history, systems, and teasing twists. To understand why daily habits matter more than intelligence or income, we need to rewind. Not to the stock market, not to Wall Street, but to the foundations of how wealth itself has always been created, because wealth isn't a modern invention. It didn't begin with apps, banks, or even money as we know it. Wealth began with systems. Thousands of years ago, in early agricultural societies, wealth wasn't gold, it was grain. Those who stored grain survived famine. Those who didn't. There was no gambling. No speculation. Just one habit repeated daily: store more than you consume. That single behavior created surplus. Surplus created power. Power created civilization. Fast forward to ancient Rome. The wealthiest Roman families didn't just conquer, they tracked. They recorded expenses on wax tablets. They controlled debt. They reinvested profits into land. The average Roman citizen lived day to day. The elite lived system to system. And here's the twist. The Roman elite weren't smarter. They weren't stronger. They were more consistent. But consistency is invisible when it's happening, which is why history rarely credits it. Instead, history remembers collapses. Empires fall not because people stop working, but because they abandon the habits that once made them wealthy. And that pattern repeats over and over and over. Origins: the birth of wealth through habit, not intelligence. Let's talk about where wealth actually begins. Not with income, not with opportunity, but with behavior. In the Middle Ages, most people worked harder than we ever will. Sunrise to sunset, no weekends, no vacations. Yet very few became wealthy. Why? Because effort without structure creates exhaustion, not wealth. The earliest merchants who built generational wealth did one radical thing. They separated earning from keeping. Most people earned and spent. Merchants earned, tracked, reinvested, and delayed gratification. Every day. Not once. Not occasionally. Daily, they wrote down numbers. They reviewed inventory. They planned for loss before it happened. And here's the uncomfortable truth. These habits felt small. No applause. No recognition. But over time, something strange happened. Compound effects began to work silently. Small margins became massive advantages. A merchant who saved just 10% more inventory than competitors survived downturns. A merchant who reinvested profits outpaced others within a decade. A merchant who avoided unnecessary debt owned land when others rented. The wealthy weren't taking bigger risks. They were repeating smaller habits longer. And that principle has never changed. The rise how daily habits quietly create exponential wealth. Fast forward to the Industrial Revolution. New machines, new jobs, new fortunes. Suddenly, income exploded. But wealth inequality exploded too. Why? Because income increased faster than financial literacy. People earned more but spent faster. Those who built wealth did something almost insulting in its simplicity. They lived below their means. Not temporarily. Not until they made it. Forever. John D. Rockefeller, the richest man in modern history, tracked every expense starting as a teenager. Every penny, every day. Not because he was poor, but because he understood control precedes growth. He didn't track money to restrict life. He tracked money to direct it. Meanwhile, most workers spent first and hoped later. Here's where cause and effect matters. Spending habits created debt. Debt created pressure. Pressure forced short-term decisions. Short-term decisions killed compounding. And compounding is the real engine of wealth. The rise of wealth wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It whispered through habits repeated thousands of times. Breaking point. When habits are abandoned, every financial collapse shares one trait. People stop doing boring things. The Great Depression wasn't caused by laziness. It was caused by leverage without discipline. People borrowed assuming growth would continue forever. They stopped saving, stopped tracking risk, stopped planning for downturns. Why? Because habits feel unnecessary when things are going well. That's the trap. Daily habits build wealth slowly, but abandoning them destroys wealth quickly. Banks overextended, households overextended. And when reality arrived, there was no margin. The same pattern repeated in 2008. Easy credit, rising home values, short-term thinking. People stopped asking, "Can I afford this long-term?" They asked, "Can I afford this right now?" That question changes everything. Daily habits weren't just neglected. They were mocked. Saving was called fear. Budgeting was called outdated. Patience was called weakness. Until the system collapsed. Again. Fallout, the long-term cost of ignoring daily wealth habits. After every collapse, people ask the same question. How did this happen? The answer is never exciting. It happens slowly. Households with no emergency funds fell first. Those dependent on single income streams followed. Those living paycheck to paycheck had no escape route. The fallout wasn't equal. Those with habits recovered faster. Those without them stayed stuck longer. And here's the cruel part. The people most affected were often the hardest workers. Because effort alone does not protect you from systemic shocks. Only structure does. Daily habits are invisible shields. You don't see them until you need them. Failed fixes. Why most people try the wrong solutions. After every crisis, society pushes fixes. More income, more education, more motivation. But these miss the root cause. You don't build wealth by earning more if your habits leak money faster. You don't build wealth by knowing more if behavior doesn't change. And motivation is useless without systems. Most people try to fix financial problems with intensity instead of consistency. They binge save. They budget for a month. They invest once, then stop. Wealth doesn't respond to bursts. It responds to repetition. Failed fixes focus on outcomes instead of inputs. The wealthy focus on daily inputs. That's the difference. Modern parallels, shocking data, and repeating patterns. Today the pattern is repeating again. Over 60% of people can't cover a $1,000 emergency. Credit card debt is at record highs. Lifestyle inflation rises with every raise. People aren't broke because they earn too little. They're broke because daily habits haven't evolved with the economy. Apps made spending frictionless. Algorithms reward impulse. Culture celebrates consumption. Meanwhile, the habits that build wealth remain unchanged and unpopular. Track spending. Automate saving. Invest consistently. Delay gratification. Protect downside risk. Boring. Unshareable. Effective. The same habits that worked for Roman merchants. Medieval traders, industrial tycoons, and post-war investors still work today. The system hasn't changed. Only distractions have delayed answer. So what are the daily habits? Now we arrive at the question you've been waiting for. What are the daily habits that actually build wealth? Not hacks, not tricks, habits. Here they are, not as a list, but as a system. Habit 1. Daily awareness. Wealth begins with attention. Know where your money goes daily, not monthly. Awareness precedes control. Habit 2. Automatic self-payment. Pay yourself first every single day indirectly through systems. Wealth grows when saving is non-negotiable. Habit 3. Small, consistent investing, not timing the market. Participating in it. Daily or weekly contributions beat emotional decisions. Habit 4. Lifestyle stability. As income rises, expenses rise slower. This gap is where wealth hides. Habit 5. Risk management. Insurance, emergency funds, diversification. Not exciting, but essential. Each habit alone seems insignificant. Together, they become unstoppable. Final takeaways: clear, memorable, actionable. Let's end with 3 truths. Takeaway 1. Wealth is not built through big moments, but through small decisions repeated daily. Takeaway 2. The habits that feel boring now are the ones your future self depends on. Takeaway 3. You don't rise to your financial goals, you fall to your financial habits. Warning and open-ended thought. Here's the warning. If you don't intentionally build daily habits around money, you will still have habits. They just won't be working for you. The question isn't whether habits are shaping your future. The question is whose future they're building. Natural call to action. If this changed the way you think about wealth, share it with someone who believes money is about luck or income. Subscribe if you want more deep cause and effect breakdowns like this. And ask yourself tonight, not tomorrow, not next year, what daily habit am I repeating? And where will it take me in 10 years? Because wealth doesn't arrive. It accumulates quietly.